Fatima dey juju so, she dey cause go slow. The way that you move, you go be making man go low. So wine I'm steady, I go rock I'm steady. Me pocket heavy, don't do. Country with the big boys, so fine girl just the waka waka.
Yes, and it's now time with your investor.
Big nash, me I must do now.
And I have here in the studio with me Abdul Hakim Al Hassan and Emmanuel Akapo Abba. Yes, Emmanuel Akapo Abba and Abdul Hakim Al Hassan. They are here in the studio to give us 7 essential tips to manage debt effectively. Can you imagine having no debt? What kinds of decisions come with a paycheck when you owe nothing? Well, this kind of dreaming doesn't have to be a dream. Whether you are in a stage of life where college planning is central, retirement is also imminent, or marriage is calendar days away, being debt-free is possible. And to build wealth and focus on important financial goals, you need to trim down and ultimately eliminate debt. These debt management tips will help you stay in control of your money and developing the discipline and motivation to get out of debt will enable you to focus on becoming financially secure. Debt keeps you from making the most out of your money, which is why it is critical to know how to manage it. Today, we will be looking at 7 essential tips to manage and get out of debt effectively. And our guests are Abdul Hakim Al Hassan, yes, and Emmanuel Akapo Abba of Data Bank. Gentlemen, welcome back to the studio.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Lovely. I hope you had a good weekend.
It was great, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's good to hear that from you. So, why do most people get into debt?
I think there could be several factors why people go into debt. The first thing has to do with the fact that most people do so as a result of necessity. So people go into debt simply because of survival or provision of basic needs of life. So you can imagine somebody going in for debt because of things like food, water, shelter, or clothes. As sad as that is, most people do so because of their inability to actually provide for their basic needs. Now, the second thing has to do with the fact that people actually have poor money management skills. So, and I always say that when you fail to plan your money so well, you're actually setting yourself up to fail. So I believe that the moment you are a salary worker, the moment you have income coming out of your business, there is a need to set down or set up a budget so that you get to know how much is really coming into your coffers, and then you know how much you are spending. That way it helps you cut down some of the unnecessary expenses that you can do with, or it would also make you postpone some of the things that you feel they are not necessary to actually tackle now. Now, I think when you also have reduced incomes, because you are already used to a certain lifestyle, the moment your salaries are slashed or the moment your business is not going as you expect them to do and income has actually reduced, because you're already used to some spending habits, you can't actually match up. So some people would have to go in for debt just to compensate for that difference that it will come with. So I think the moment you are budgeting also, you have a fair idea of what you used to spend, how much used to come in, and what it is now, so that you can readjust or recalibrate so that, your spending would actually match up with your temporary reduction in income.
Okay.
And I think people don't also do enough savings. So the moment the unexpected happens, they are quick to actually go in for debt just so they can actually stay at par.
Okay.
So I feel the moment you are doing a lot of the savings, anytime there's an emergency, you easily can take care of that need without actually going out to borrow.
Borrowing from somebody.
Yeah.
Do you want to add to that?
Yeah. I think 2 things I would like to add. Compulsiveness. The act where there's lack of self-control. Mm-hmm. So when you're walking through town, you don't actually stick to your budget. Sometimes it's not, you can't blame yourself, but other times you want to make it a habit You want to graduate from it being something that you are doing as a duty to where it's now part of you. So it's more of your habit.
Okay.
So when you step out, you know that, okay, I'm spending 10 cities today, I'm spending 20 cities today, and you stick to that. Even if it comes, there arises the need where you need to do a purchase, then you know that, okay, it's going to affect the budget this way, hence I can contain it.
Okay.
Basically, that's what you're trying to do. And the second thing is pride. And people want to, get into certain social circles. People want to be perceived. Exactly. Wow. People want to. Remember the last time I came here, I spoke about the Benz, I spoke about the Mercedes, and I spoke about the Mercedes Benz. Yes. So people want to get into certain circles, and getting to those circles ideally come with some level of spending, which probably you are not cut out for, based on your income. So you want to be able to check that. And also, at least, even if you are going to get into those circles, don't borrow to get in there if it needs there. I understand when people say networking is very important. So maybe if there's an event going on at a certain location, he would want to pay maybe 1,000 cedis to get there. All we are saying is that save towards it.
Yes.
Don't go borrow to go for such an event. That's basically what I would like to add to that. Yeah.
So when we talk about debt, right? I think most of the time we pay attention to bad debts, right? But on the flip side, is there anything like good debts?
Oh, yeah.
Can you be in debt and say, okay, I feel good for being?
It's not necessarily a feeling. Basically, what you want to do is that there's bad debt and there's good debt.
Right.
Now, good debt here, you are looking at debt that you are taking for maybe using that as an instrument for maybe investment. So maybe you are taking a debt. Maybe you've done your feasibility studies on a certain business you want to start.
Okay.
You want to be able to run the business a certain way. Probably there's even demand for that business already, but you don't have the startup capital that you want to use for that business. So in that situation, you've done all the numbers. You know that, okay, if I go for a loan of 10,000, I'll be able to turn it around in the next 3 months. People are ready to purchase the goods. I'll be able to make, say, 17,000 as my sales, pay off my debt. I'll be able to reinvest. So in such an instance, going for debt is good. That's the thing. Secondly, for mortgage, for example, and business expansion, you understand me, or even using a car loan for where the car is going to be a business.
Okay.
Those ones are not necessarily bad debts. It becomes a bad debt when you don't actually how will I say, manage it properly. That's when it tends to become a bad debt. So these things, so even for the mortgage loan, the fact that one of my mentors said this, the fact that you've just started working doesn't mean that you can't go for a mortgage. You can go for a mortgage, but you don't go for a 6-bedroom house.
Okay.
Because they said mortgage. So
you're going for the 6-bedroom.
As a young guy who you just started working, you can go for a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom where you can easily pay. Then whilst you are paying that, you live life, because ideally it's more like you're paying rent. So but you're staying in the comfort of your own home.
Yes.
Then you take your time to build your own retirement home or your own dream home. So at a point in time where you need to move into that dream home, that property, which is a mortgage, which probably you would have paid off, now becomes an investment for you where you can rent out. You understand me? So that is like good debt that you can take into consideration. Yeah.
Okay, so we've been able to differentiate between a good and a bad debt. So a good debt, what are some of the factors to consider before borrowing or actually taking a loan? What are some of the reasons or factors, if you can share?
So whether it's for expansion purposes, like my colleague mentioned, for businesses, or it's for consumption purposes, like a bad debt, I think there are a few factors.
Not to cut you. So if you're going to take a loan to feed yourself, it's a bad debt.
It is.
Okay, you can continue.
Okay. So before you borrow or take any kind of debt, I mean, there are a few questions you'd want to ask yourself. You need to find out how quickly, how badly you actually need that money. Okay. Is it a necessity or is it a want? That's one of the criteria you would have to meet. You need to also decide, if you decide to borrow, what are the options available to you?
As in, talking about the payment plans or the particular
so that is one
loan?
of it, and then the type of loan you should actually go in for.
Okay.
Because we actually have auto loan, we have personal loans, we have mortgage loans. So it depends on which one you're actually going into.
So don't go and take a mortgage loan and use it to buy a car.
Perfectly
Exactly.
so. Perfectly so.
Nice.
You also need to know how you raise monies to pay off this loan you're actually going in for. There should be a mechanism where you can easily pay off these loans without putting too much financial burden on yourself. And yes,
How do you? Or you that will save it for later.
you really need to sit down to do all of these things before
You actually go into the
walk
financial institution
Exactly,
and
because-
ask them to help you.
Exactly, because anything at all could happen to you. You could lose your job. That income you've actually set your mind to could be in the space or could be in the air, vanish.
So there should be contingency plan upon contingency plan upon contingency plan.
Always a plan.
That's hard.
Always a plan B,
That's
just to
hard.
make sure that you can actually pay off that loan. And also, you may want to consider if there are alternative ways of raising the money without going in for debt. Yes, because I personally feel if you are starting a business, you don't start off a business on a loan.
Hey, so those who are going for loans to marry.
It's a big problem. It's a big
I mean, I don't know how we are going to curtail that, but hey, that's
So
It's still happening, eh?
yeah.
it goes to fit into what I was talking about, you know, the social circles, and yeah, it might be a necessity, but there are different types of weddings. I mean, we've seen different types of weddings
True.
from the Joneses and to
and
the rest.
to
We've
the-
seen a lot of them. You don't necessarily need to fall into that category. You can do something on your own. I saw on Facebook recently where a young couple, I think it was a Caucasian lady and a dark gentleman
Yes.
who they were in a normal kaftan. The lady had sewn like a female version of the kaftan. They were in a normal Sunday. If no one tells you it's a wedding, you will not even know it's a wedding.
know.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the happiness is within them. So you should know where you are deriving your happiness from and basically what you're going to use the money for. That's what my brother is trying to say here. Then I think another thing I would add to what he was saying was the cost of borrowing. That's one thing that a lot of people don't actually look to do. So when he says, okay, I can have the collateral, I have the money, give me the money so that I can go. They forget about the interest rates there.
Yeah,
Some people don't
'cause
even.
nobody even thinks about
some
it
people even
until
hear
it's
the
time to
interest
pay.
rates and they don't. When the first payment comes and they're deducted, like, I'm paying this much.
And then they'll
You
now start
understand me?
calculating.
Exactly.
So at the end, I'm going to pay this much for this money already. The money has hit
So,
your account.
One thing I always say, especially when I come here, is ask a lot of questions when you go for some of these things. Financial houses are very open to questions. So go in there, pour all the questions on them. Make sure that at least that financial step that you are taking is not an emotional one. It's not something that you are doing out of pressure or somebody's putting a gun to your head to do. But at least you are doing it because you are satisfied in yourself that, okay, I can take this step. That's it.
I see. Now, for some people, the more money they make, right, the higher their debt becomes. And I've always wondered how that ratio works, because if I'm making more money, why am I?
They do say that most of the rich people in the country are living on debt.
Yes, I mean, how does that happen? How does that work? Because if I'm making more money, I shouldn't be owing anybody.
I told one of my colleagues this story. So the simple answer I have for this is taste buds.
Okay.
Everybody and their taste buds. So you realize that somebody is able to live on 350 cedis salary when he's a national service personnel.
Right.
The person will be comfortable, go and come, working hard, probably gets contracts now, bumps up to maybe 1,000 cedis. The person is still comfortable at the same time. The person is still borrowing at the same time. Then moves to maybe a permanent staff of say 5,000 cedis. Still, the person is borrowing. Why? Because gradually, when the person's income increases, the person adjusts to that income. So you realize that that same person who was not maybe taking taxi to work
Now takes Uber. It
to
waits
work.
for her 10 minutes before she
Wow.
comes down.
Exactly.
So it's more of psychological than
Exactly. It's more of comfort, where people are looking at comfort. You know, when you've been into that small hole for a very long time. So there's any little expansion that comes, you look at comfort. That comfort that is
Wow.
there. That's the thing.
So you need to have some kind of discipline, huh?
Exactly. That's the key thing. Discipline should be the very key thing, just so that you notice exactly what you're supposed to do at what time, especially when your income increases. That's the thing. So these are some of the actions that you should take. There are 3 of them.
Okay.
The first is you should pause and don't act immediately.
When the alert hits the account,
Yes. You need to pause.
the excitement.
pause. Yes, don't act immediately. It's tempting. That's the thing. It's tempting to want to live all your dreams at the same time. The key is that you don't do all of them immediately. My boss says that everybody must pay their 10,000 hours. So relax. Your time will come when you have to be in the V8.
You have to bamba. Want to chill with the big boss.
And it is sweet when you're in the V8 and you are not thinking of debt.
Or saying I do to your partner and
not be thinking
The
of,
next month fights.
you understand me? The worst thing is when you are being saying I do and the caterer is waving you
Yeah.
my balance.
No way.
You understand me? So that's the thing. You want to be able to pause, don't act immediately. The second one is pack your money in a near liquid investment. When we say near liquid investment, or the term liquid means that how easily you can convert whatever investments that you have to cash.
Okay.
So when we say a near liquid investment, you're looking at investments like the treasury bills, like the data bank M fund, where in case of any form of emergency, in case that you need money to do something,
It's easy
you
to
can easily have
liquidate.
access to
Okay.
cash. You can easily liquidate. You understand me?
Wow.
Then I think the last one is to draft a plan that details your needs and wants, like my colleague mentioned. He's called Pablo, so you're
Don Pablo. Chale. Pablo Chale.
he's the Pablo of data bank.
Nice one.
So you want to be able to plan your details in terms of your needs and wants, then you prioritize. Yes, mostly the wants would come in and all, but you
Trying to
need to
get
be able
your
to put
attention
needs,
the most.
exactly. But you want to be able to put the needs above that.
Okay.
nice.
So, what are these 7 essential tips we all need to adopt in order to manage our debts effectively?
So I'll take the first one.
Okay.
I think Pablo also take the second one. Then you don't want to take on unnecessary debts. Avoid debts.
In the beginning.
Yes, avoid it. Even though we have good debt, we have bad debt. Just avoid it.
Best to avoid.
Yes. If you don't have it, this is the best thing that you want to say. If you don't have it, avoid it. But if you have it, pay it off quickly.
Okay.
That's with debt.
That's the first
Yes.
essential tip on how to manage your debt.
Now the second one, you need to know when to use your investment as a collateral for a loan. So I know a lot of people actually going for loans just to finance their educational needs. So they want to further their education. They don't have the means to do so, but they want to do so using a loan. Now the question is, we have to remember that income is not going to come immediately from that upgrade you have done. So if you are expecting that because you're on 1,000 CD grade, a master's will get you a 5,000 immediately. That might not happen. So you may want to delay that master's you want to do and actually plan towards it before you actually finance it, so that you can be comfortable and enjoy that degree you've actually attained for yourself.
Also, life is not a race,
I tell you.
Don't go and take a loan and hopes that HR will understand what I say at one moment.
So another thing also, the next one is to actually match your time frames to taking a loan, especially when you want to start a business or you're looking at using the loan to start a business. Basically, people look at taking a loan and repaying the loan off. They don't actually match the time frame here. The time frame here we are talking about is when the business is at its peak or at its level where it can actually pay off the loan. So the rule of thumb basically is like, for every business, ideally after 5 years, you realize that you are okay in the industry.
If it's equilibrium.
But it's okay. So even if you are paying off debts that you actually incurred, you don't have a problem at that stage.
Okay.
So the advice here is to you using your personal funds to shore up the business to at least that stage where at least
before you
if
go
you are taking
in
on a
for
loan,
support.
you know that you've run the business for 5 years. There's some consistency there. There's some track record where you can use that to actually be a basis on which you take the loan.
And I don't
That's
even
the
think
thing.
any business will give you a loan if you just started your business.
true.
Because
Exactly.
at the This Is Ghana exhibition, we found out, because most of the financial institutions that came there was 2 years into the business before you be
Yes.
considered.
Exactly. So it will do you a lot of good yourself,
Sure.
where you have a lot of information to be able to, based on that, to take whatever loan that you want to take. That's the thing.
All right. Hey, Manu.
Now you need to also decide whether you would want to pay off the debt versus investment. So let's say maybe on a monthly basis you are paid, let's say 2,000 Ghana cedis.
Okay.
You already owe some good amount with the bank. You may want to either put off the payment of the loan so that you redirect those monies into an investment. The question is, one may want to pay off those debts quickly in order to focus on the investment. Another person would also want to, do both at the same time. Whichever one works, whichever works for you, you should go in for that one. But make sure you are not taking on additional loans. After repaying the loans you owe, or maybe taking on loans to pay off.
That is, if you have an investment package and you also went for a loan, that if you are able to finish paying your debt, don't go in for a new one, but focus on your investment. Okay.
Yeah. And then the next one would be to be disciplined enough, especially if you are taking a short-term loan to invest.
Okay.
Mostly, this comes about when people have or they receive some windfalls that is not necessarily theirs. Probably they are keeping maybe say some 50,000 cedis for someone, or maybe they've received some money or done some business. They need to pay somebody off their cut of the business. Basically, what you want to do is you want to be able to invest that money.
Okay.
That's the thing. Now, if you are going to take that money as a loan, or if you are going to how would I put it? Use that money, you want to be able to make sure that you have backup for it.
Yes.
So the whole idea is that whatever amount of money they are taking for that short term, or whatever amount of money they are taking as a loan to invest, make sure that you don't dip into it.
So that's the common mistake.
Exactly, because the whole concept is that, okay, I'll put this money down for this person so that at least the interest will come out, take that interest that is there. Then you find out that people just get dipping into it, that, oh, I'll pay that one back before the time gets there. Oh, I'll pay back before the time. Before you realize 10,000 is gone. Yes. A lot of people know this. If you take 100 CDs and you spend 1 CD out of it,
these days even 1,000 CDs, man.
Yeah, the 200 CD note.
Yeah.
If you just spend 1 CD, it's done. So before you realize you are gone down 1,000 CDs, 2,000 CDs, and now paying that 2,000 CDs back becomes a problem for you. That's the thing. So be disciplined enough not to do that. Yeah.
The next thing has to do with the fact that don't borrow to pay school fees. So
today is also a graduation day, pal. We are talking about not borrowing to pay school fees. Somebody's thinking about repaying it right now. But the Lord is our strength.
True.
Yeah.
So I think you need to take a very good look at yourself. Check the situation. Check the affordability. And be truthful to yourself. You need to ask yourself these questions and not compare with another person who is having that comfort of having parents actually fund those educational needs. And we are all not the same, actually. And I personally don't actually subscribe to going for loans to pay school fees. And like I mentioned earlier on, these are things you come back to pay for. So the moment your income is not matching up to this high interest loans you've gone in for, you'll be in trouble. You may not feel comfortable in that MBA title your friends are actually calling. You
rightly mentioned it will not directly translate into your salary being increased automatically. So it might take a little bit more effort than that.
And if you have kids too, now I think education is basic. It's no more something of the privilege or those in luxurious classes. It's something we all want to give our kids, whether they would want to even sell in the market. They should be able to read and write. So the moment you have kids, the next thing as a parent you should be thinking about is how you are going to be able to finance their educational needs. So you start planning. You have 9 months before the baby comes out. It's a good time to actually plan for some of these things, just so you run away from the debt.
So basically, not to sound controversial, but if you ain't ready to take care of a child, don't get pregnant.
Simple.
Why would you bring a child on this?
And you haven't adequately
So once you know that, definitely you want to plan ahead for that.
Right.
Then the last one is just to know the pros and cons for borrowing for mortgage versus borrowing to build.
Okay.
Borrowing to build and borrowing for mortgage. Well, mortgage is a worthwhile debt. You want to be able to put yourself in a position where you know that you can afford it. That's the thing. So if you keep that versus say you keeping to borrow to pay rent, where that structure is not yours. You understand me? Compared to maybe you borrowing to also going to build. So you realize that maybe for foundation is taking you 40,000 Ghana cedis, you go borrow to come do that. Maybe you do your own 1-2-1-2 to be able to put it up. Then the flowing goes to another 40,000. You go borrow to pay that. You realize that you don't put yourself in a situation where you can be able to pay your debts properly, or have a proper financial plan to be able to offset those debts. So you want to be able to at least weigh the two. First of all, look at your income, weigh the two. If you think, hey, let me put this hassle of the dealing with the masons and all of those things and just going for a mortgage big, as long as my income can cover it, that's fine. If you think that you have the time also and you want the building a specific, it should be done in a specific way, then you want to be able to put yourself in that position also, where at least you can plan properly for it and be able to pay off the loan at any point in time. That's the thing.
Well, so I mean, just in 60 seconds, what's the sustainable way of paying back debts in 60 seconds for someone who just joined in right now? The person is in debt. What's the best way to pay all that back? Sustainable way.
There are three strategies.
Right.
First one, you pay out all the high interest loans. So you look at your loan, you list all of them down. Then all your high interest ones, you pay them off first. Then you come to the next ones like that, downwards to the lowest one. Then there's another one where you list from the highest to the lowest. You try as much as possible to be paying them in bits. But as much goes into the lower ones to clear them off earlier. So once you finish with the lowest interest, you roll it over to the middle one upwards like that before you clear everything up. Then there's where you consolidate everything into one. So that you know that
it's a big lump sum I'm going to pay
lump sum.
first.
So if it's maybe I have a mortgage of 60,000, I have a loan of 20,000, and I have maybe a business loan of another 20,000. In total, that is 100,000 loan. So you just consolidate everything at one. Then you know that this is where I'm making my payments to.
Sharp. All right.
So thank you for joining us. Any final words and where we can get in touch with our data bank?
Okay, so after you've actually taken on the debts and you've actually learned how to repay them off, I would advise that in the future you try as much as possible to find alternative ways of actually raising money, so that, I mean, just like my colleague mentioned, if you've not started taking on debts, you avoid it. If you've already taken them, you try as much as possible to pay them off quickly. You can always call Data Bank on 0302-610-610, so we can actually help you plan towards some of these things. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
And those were our the reps from our data bank, Abdul Hakim Al Hassan and Emmanuel Akapo Abba. Okay, and they came to share with us the 7 essential tips to manage debt effectively. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen.